What is going on, everyone? Welcome into the Week 10 NFL Power Rankings show. We're going to get right into it, but if you could do me a real quick favor first, hit that like button down below. Really helps me out. Also, make sure you subscribed. Going to be heading down to Miami here next week, going to the Dolphins game, but going to have some extra time on my hands. Going to get into the 2023 NFL quarterback class. So we're going to have some draft content coming here sooner than we normally do on this channel. You're not going to want to miss it. So make sure you're subscribed for that. And let's go ahead and get started. At the bottom of the Week 10 Power Rankings, I think we do have a clear-cut group of three right now at the bottom, the booty tier, if you will, of teams that are looking at that number one pick. And a new team at number 32 this week, the Indianapolis Colts. Jim Irsay steps in, rips Matt Ryan out of there, rips Frank Reich out of there. And honestly, he would have it this way. This is an owner that remembers what Andrew Luck did for this organization, wants a little bit more of that in Bryce Young. So stepping in, honestly, I can't really hate the move, even if he has to make himself look like an idiot for a little while. Most owners in the NFL don't have the ambition to do this, and I honestly don't hate it. So we'll see if it works out for them. But right now, you watch that press conference, you look at this team's play on the field. Hard to say this isn't the worst team in football right now. Then I have the Carolina Panthers at 31. Went out on a little bit of a limb last week and said that this was going to turn around very quickly in a bad way. You know, the last 2 weeks, they were much more competitive. They beat the Bucs. They were a couple of missed kicks away from beating the Falcons and I think tying first place in the NFC South. But I said that loss against the Falcons was going to be really deflating for this team, for this locker room, for a team that is supposed to be a defensive-minded team. And they come out and look incredibly flat. Joe Mixon runs all over them. The Panthers stink, are going to continue to stink, and rank number 31. Then at number 30, the Houston Texans. Still don't think this team's any good. I think they're really quite bad, actually. Maybe the least talented roster in the NFL. But from a locker room perspective, I think their effort level is adequate compared to these other two teams, for what it's worth. So to me, that is the bottom tier, your three teams most likely to end up with Bryce Young. But the Pittsburgh Steelers here at number 28, coming off a bye this week. We'll see what kind of adjustments Mike Tomlin can make. It's still weird to see the Steelers this low, but when you look at how they've played this year, they really are not that far off of those bottom three teams. Theoretically, might get TJ Watt back. Does that spark this defense? We'll see, but in all honesty, this team is mediocre on both sides of the football. Then at number 28, I have the Detroit Lions. Huge win for this locker room. They've obviously struggled to finish these close games, and that's been a storyline for this team's entire season. So can they get that monkey off their back? We'll see moving forward. Did I walk out of that game overly impressed by Detroit? Not really. You know, offensively, they continue to struggle. They showed yet again that they can't really come out and have both sides of the ball play 4 quarters of good football in a single game, but this week it was the defense. And I do think that is the biggest takeaway from the last few weeks is that Aaron Glenn has settled down. They fire their defensive backs coach, and the team responds. These DBs played great this week, granted against a banged-up, horrible Packers receiving group. But you get a guy like Jerry Jacobs back into the lineup, benching Amani Oruwariye, who's had a bad year. Kirby Joseph, an absolute breakout superstar safety this year. You can't even argue it. Kirby Joseph has been one of the 5 best safeties in the NFL this year. Derek Barnes, athletic linebacker, steps in and has a big week. So they are getting some guys on that defense that I think are contributing to them being better on that side of the ball, which was much needed for Detroit. But a 2-win football team, we'll see where this goes moving forward. Then the Chicago Bears at number 27. Look, Justin Fields is awesome, man. He's playing great. Seems to be getting better every week, and boy, is he fun to watch. That game was just so electric. His athleticism, his ability to run, it's pretty damn amazing. It is honestly on that Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray level So for the Bears, this is best case scenario, right? You came into the year saying, whatever happens, we need to know that Justin Fields is our franchise quarterback. And right now you feel pretty damn good about that. Now, this defense is a problem, right? They trade away Robert Quinn. They trade away Roquan Smith. They've given up, I think, 84 points the last 2 weeks. Justin Fields is not a perfect quarterback. And frankly, no quarterback should be put in that situation. As far as this team winning games, I'm not sold. They are in a rebuild. We know that. But Justin Fields stealing the show here for the Bears. Then we have a tier gap up to what I'm going to call misappointments. Obviously, a play on the word disappointments. All of these teams, A, are very likely going to be missing the playoffs, and B, will find that tough truth as a disappointment. All of these teams had some form of expectations to maybe be in the playoffs this year. Starting at number 26 for the Raiders, who the move for Davante Adams, the acquisition of Chandler Jones, could not have been further away from where this team really was. Even extending Derek Carr, I question it. Many people question it. If this team could reap the results of an aggressive move like that to trade 2 picks and pay a 30-year-old wide receiver. And it's not talking down on Davante Adams. He was incredible this week. But look, this team is just not ready. This defense is terrible. They have holes everywhere. This offensive line isn't any good. And that's forcing Derek Carr to be something he's not, and that is an elite quarterback. Derek Carr hasn't been bad this year, but with the expectations placed on this team this year, with him getting that contract extension, you just wrote a check that you couldn't cash, Raiders. So they find themselves in a really tough spot. They lose to the Jags this week. They blow another 17-point lead. What a disaster season for the Raiders, and I don't really know where you go from this point either. Then we have the Washington Commanders at number 25. Boy, oh boy, how quickly things can change in this league. Third quarter ends. You've got a 17-7 lead. Feeling pretty good that you're going to get to 5-4, get into that wild card picture with Chase Young coming back. And then Kirk Cousins comes storming back. Taylor Heineke throws the game away. And you're sitting there throwing your hands up, feeling like you're stuck in purgatory again. And that's exactly where the Washington Commanders are. Then at number 24, I have the New Orleans Saints. Really disappointing outing on Monday Night Football. I think there was some hope that they could come out, continue to play great defense as they have recently, and continue to have success offensively. And my takeaway from that game was that offensive line just sold. It's not that Andy Dalton was great in that game, but the Ravens were all over them up front. Not much of a run game. Couldn't get the ball off. Sacks, you name it. It's an issue for this team, and now the Philadelphia Eagles holding a top 5 pick at the moment, courtesy of the New Orleans Saints, who find themselves in a very, very strange window with their franchise. Then the Green Bay Packers at number 23. I don't think the biggest Packers haters could have seen this coming in a situation where their season is pretty much done at this point. And literally adding insult to injury this week, not just continuing their on-the-field woes, but losing 8 starters to injury this week, including superstar pass rusher Rashawn Gary for the year for an ACL. And this is rock bottom for a pathetic Packers organization that had Super Bowl expectations this year. A team that views change as a cancer, whether it's incremental adjustments that could have and should have been made to this point in the season, whether it was defensive scheme changes or certain personnel usage decisions on both sides of the ball, or acquiring receiver talent, whether it was during the season or in the offseason when it was so apparently obvious that it needed to happen. But that's a macro problem in Green Bay. They can't look themselves in the mirror. I would be incredibly surprised if they're able to do it moving forward. It couldn't be any more obvious that Joe Barry is not the right coordinator. His already bad resume continues to get worse for his underperforming defense this year. They have a fraud general manager in Brian Gutekunst who can't draft, can't participate in free agency, can't seal the deals and trades, has drafted horribly for 3 straight years. He's the worst general manager in football outside of maybe Arizona right now, and Green Bay thinks he's great. He's probably going to be around for another 5 years because he drafted Rashawn Gary. It's incredible that this team can't look themselves in the mirror, not to mention a president in Mark Murphy that needs to step down. So I think this Packers organization is embarrassing. They surely are embarrassed. But the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And no, Aaron Rodgers is not playing at an elite level. Sure, you can criticize him if you want. That's totally fair game. But the reality is, this is the Green Bay Packers without an elite quarterback carrying things and sheltering things, just as Aaron Rodgers has done for this team for the better part of 10 years since they won their first Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. So I am worried about the future of the Packers organization, not just next year, whether that's with Aaron Rodgers or not, but for the future of the organization as a whole that has an unbelievable list of changes that they need to make that they very likely won't make. Let's move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who come in at number 22, picking up a win this week. I thought Trevor Lawrence played his best, most consistent, cleanest game of football. Good to see them continue to build things up. Just a much better week for the 2021 quarterback class in general. But the pass rush up front getting after it. I thought Trayvon Walker had his best game as well. So the Jags building some things after a nice comeback win against the Raiders. That's something they've struggled to do this year as well, is come from behind. So good week for the Jags, who look okay. You got to remember, their point differential, I think, is actually positive this year. They're kind of a sneaky, solid team this year, despite what their record might tell you. Then the Arizona Cardinals at number 21, coming down 3 spots, and they find themselves in a really difficult situation here. Frustrating loss against the Seahawks, and it's just more of the same. Mental mistakes, it's fumbles, it's weird trick plays that are poorly executed. They were right there, really play for play with the Seahawks, but it was the Cardinals that made those mental mistakes, and it was the Seahawks that didn't, and that is definitely something that the Cardinals have struggled with for a long time in the Cliff Kingsbury era. They are just mentally soft, not to mention they got beat up at the line of scrimmage yet again this week. But let's take a tier jump up into the down but not out tier. I don't think these are good teams. I really don't think these are Super Bowl caliber teams, but I think they still have a little bit of a glimpse of hope compared to some of those teams we just broke down. And that starts with the Atlanta Falcons, whose hope is largely consisted on the fact that the division leader is currently 4-5 in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but they're playing pretty good, man. They really are. The defense still lacks talent, but they can run the crap out of the football. This is one of the most efficient run teams in the league, and they're still continuing to find creative ways to move the ball. Really close game against the Chargers. I know you might say, how did they go up +4 after a loss? You know, they were right there at the end of that game. They couldn't finish, but I still think this team is solid and can be in the mix in the NFC South, but it's teetering on, you know, their season being done for sure. Then the Cleveland Browns at number 19. Excited to see this team in person this week, on bye this week, and they really need to win because they got Deshaun Watson hopefully coming back here soon. We know what this team is right now. We don't really know what they're going to be when Watson gets back, but they're hanging around at number 19. Then the New England Patriots, big win for them this week. You know, they played the Colts and Sam Ehlinger, but they win again. They're right in the playoff picture. This defense continues to play well. This is something Belichick has done over the years. Get better as the year goes on, really figure out who his football team is, and become, at worst, a good football team. So the Patriots trending in the right direction. Matt Judon, if you just go off of the stats, where he has a 4-sack lead on the next guy down with 12 sacks, leads he's second in the league in pressures. He is, if you're just going off the stats, after a year where TJ Watt won it after breaking the sack record, Matt Judon on pace to be the defensive player of the year right now, at least statistically speaking. Then we have the Denver Broncos staying put at 17 on bye after the London game. Thought they have, figured some stuff out offensively against the Jags a little bit, and we'll see where they go from here. Then the LA Rams at number 16. Man, what a tough loss. They blow that game late. They just don't have a very good offense, right? They can't really push the ball downfield. If they do, it's just Cooper Kupp getting lost in the secondary somehow. Their offense is really just Cooper Kupp, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Defensively, they're solid. It's a very average football team right now who still has big expectations. They still have superstar players, but that's a big loss for them. That's going to really put them coming from behind as far as the playoff standings are concerned now. Now we have a tier gap up into looking good, right? There's 14 spots for the playoffs for these teams, and we've got 15 teams left. So all these teams are kind of figuring themselves out and have themselves in a position to be playoff teams moving forward. And that starts with the New York Giants moving up one on bye this week. And, not much to really add about the Giants coming off the bye. We'll see if they can continue to surprise the NFL here in the second half of the year. Then the New York Jets are going to come up 6. What a huge turnaround win for the Jets. Things were not looking good. Zach Wilson was terrible for like 2 weeks in a row. This is looking like one of the worst offenses in the league, and some great adjustments by the team. Number one, Zach Wilson just taking better care of the football, right? Not making those stupid mistakes, but also learning that they can run this offense through Garrett Wilson, who looks so freaking good. Wide receiver 1 in that draft, through and through for me. So smooth, great hands, incredible after the catch. Really good dude. I am so impressed by the adjustments they made offensively, and it allows that defense to thrive as they did against the Buffalo Bills. So this version of the Jets is a very good football team. This is not the same Jets we watched the last 2 weeks. Great to see that team make adjustments and get their season back on track. So +6 for the New York Jets. Then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers moving up 2. They sneak out a win. Was I overly impressed by the Bucs? No, definitely not. Still a lot of those same issues offensively where they're just not on the same page with everybody. They can't run the ball, but a big defensive performance. They played better defensively than I thought they would without Shaq Barrett. So good to see Todd Bowles get that defense to play up to their potential. And the Bucs find themselves in first place in their division at 4-5, and they're definitely a team that can make some noise in the playoffs if they can sneak in. Remember, they were a wild card team when they won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Then the LA Chargers at number 12. I mean, really, that Falcons-Chargers game was everything you could have imagined between two teams that try to blow games late, do crazy shit that leads to these weird games. You got Khalil Mack making one of the defensive plays of the year, just ripping the ball out of Drake London's hands. A huge defensive stop at the end of this game. And then you get the weird play where the Chargers are driving, about to kick the game-winning field goal. Eckler fumbles. The Falcons then end up really close to field goal range, and the Falcons fumble it back to the Chargers. Just, you knew this game was going to have some crazy shit in it, and it lived up to the hype. Chargers playing some close games. Hopefully can get some guys back healthy. This is a weird football team. I don't know fully what to do with them because I don't think they're fully good. I like their quarterback and some of their playmakers, but they've been finding ways to win tough games. They've shown some resiliency that I don't think they've shown in years past. So number 12 for the Chargers. Then the Tennessee Titans at 11. They're going to stay put despite the loss this week. Hopefully getting Ryan Tannehill back. Malik Willis just isn't ready. We don't need to get too far into it. It's pretty clear. But my God, do they deserve credit for that loss against the Chiefs. That defense hung in there. 100 offensive snaps for the Chiefs as they get into overtime, and the Titans battled to the very last drop. So good to see Derrick Henry giving every defensive player their props in the locker room. I mean, this is a Mike Vrabel football team through and through, and even if their upside isn't great, I mean, they came in as 13-point underdogs and took the Chiefs to overtime. So a very respectable win. I still think 11 is the right spot. They're a very solid team, a physical, disciplined, extremely well-coached team. But they certainly have their issues when you want to talk about explosiveness and upside. Then the Seattle Seahawks at number 10. They just keep rolling. This week, not that Geno was bad, but it was much more about the run game and the run after catch, the good play calling through some of the gimmick designed, manufactured passing game. Bought into the idea that they could dominate the Cardinals at the line of scrimmage, and they did. Good to know that they can do that, though, right? The Seahawks coming into the year didn't look like they had great line play on either side of the ball, and that's a big part of all of this stuff that's going on for the Seahawks right now. The offensive line has been a very pleasant surprise. They've got some guys up front. Guys like Shelby Harris was an underrated acquisition. Uchenna and Nwosu. Those guys are real difference makers for this defense that's playing much better as of late. So the Seahawks are a real football team. I think Pete Carroll is right there with Brian Daboll for Coach of the Year. And I could see those two teams coming down to the wire for the 7 seed, and maybe whoever gets that gets Coach of the Year. But you got to give Pete Carroll his props for putting this team back together quicker than really anybody could have seen coming. And you absolutely have to give props to GM John Schneider, who had a couple down years there, but draft of the year, and he's had, two of the more memorable drafts in the last decade now. This Seahawks rookie class is incredible. Tariq Woolen, good again. Kenneth Walker looks awesome. They have like 5 impact rookies, if not more, on this team. Then we got the Miami Dolphins at number 9. I'm worried about this defense, dude. I really am. They're so banged up. I know they added Bradley Chubb to the mix. Didn't make a huge difference this week. Other than that, this team's exciting. This offense is straight up one of the best in the league. I think they've been the most consistent offense in the league outside of maybe, I guess, Buffalo and Kansas. They're up there. They're in the top 5 for most consistent offenses for sure. And Tua, dude, like Tua is playing so good right now. I did not believe Tua could reach this level. My eyes from the last 2 years told me he was not a good quarterback. My eyes from this year say that's a good quarterback. And I don't think the Drew Brees comparisons are off the table if he keeps playing like this. He is so comfortable. Everything's on time. The accuracy over the middle is incredible to hit these guys in stride. And yeah, he's got these incredible playmakers to help him thrive. But you got to give Tua his props, man. He has dominated offensively for the last couple of weeks and putting the Dolphins in a spot where they're going to be a tough team to beat in the playoffs for sure, especially if they can get some guys back healthy on the defensive side of the ball, because we know they're well coached there. I think it's just a talent and injury issue right now in that secondary. But we do have a tier gap up into the top 8 of teams that I feel pretty confident saying these are just good teams. And that starts with the Cincinnati Bengals. What a bounce back week. You go back 2 weeks ago and felt like their offense was going to take a huge step back without Jamar Chase. And then they said, nope, was just a bad week, actually. We can definitely move this ball without Jamar Chase, and boy, are we excited to get him back in a few weeks. But this run game has completely opened up since they've made these systematic adjustments. If you remember about a month ago, they became more of a spread shotgun offense. But simultaneously, they have, I don't want to say abandoned their zone offense. If you remember, this coaching staff, Zach Taylor, comes from that Rams, Shanahan wide zone system. They're a gap run game right now. They're going power, trap, mixing into that second level in a hurry, and he is thriving in these runs. What a dominant running back performance. Joe Burrow, very good this week as well. And defensively, this team's very solid as well. So the Bengals moving back up into the good teams tier, with the Baltimore Ravens staying put at number 7, taking care of business against the Saints. I do think that this defensive emergence is legit. They came out the first month of the year, were pretty shaky on that side of the ball, but we see this a lot. Teams come in, new coordinator. You just got a lot to figure out, right? They're changing their coverages on the back end. They had some moving pieces in the secondary. They just had to figure some stuff out. But God, this defense has been really good the last couple weeks. We know this Ravens team historically figures things out on that side of the ball. And that just raises the floor for the Ravens to the point where they can have a game like this, where they're running around. Lamar does stuff with his feet. They find ways to move the ball through guys like Isaiah Likely. Kenyon Drake running the ball pretty well, even though it doesn't look like it, wearing number 17. One of the least aesthetically pleasing things in the entire NFL right now. But this is a team that, they're going to make you earn everything, and more often than not, they're going to come out on top. And they've been able to close these games late as well, which obviously was a big issue for them. Yes, the Rashad Bateman injury hurts, but hopefully can get Mark Andrews back soon. And I don't know if they're a Super Bowl team, but they're a damn good football team for sure. The Minnesota Vikings at number 6. Wasn't looking good for a little bit there, but the resiliency of this team is very much true. They climbed to 7-1. They just keep rolling. And maybe it is just the Vikings year, man. A team that has had a rough run of luck for a long time. They might be getting Taylor Heineke's, Case Keenum's Bills this week, depending on that Josh Allen injury. And I do hope we get to see them play Josh Allen and the Bills, because it doesn't feel like the Vikings have really played a whole lot of good teams, but they're winning the games they should. And even if in a normal year they're more of just an above average team, this isn't a normal year. A lot of teams are playing worse than they should, and the Vikings are playing as well as they should, if not better, and that's been enough for them to keep winning, climb to 7-1. Might be looking at a home playoff game, which would be huge for this team. Why not the Vikings, right? Then the San Francisco 49ers staying put at number 5 on bye this week. Hopefully can continue to get healthy, and I think the Niners could potentially get really hot towards the end of the year and end up as the top dog in the NFC come the end of the year. But we'll see. And then the Dallas Cowboys at number 4 on bye this week. We kind of know what this team is capable of and what they're made of. They just got to keep executing, moving forward. But I am going to have a final tier here, including the Eagles as a top tier team in the league. So Eagles fans, I think I look back on these power rankings and I think Eagles fans are probably the one fan base that might be mad at me this week. I don't really see any other teams that would have a huge gripe with their ranking. But you are now getting moved into a tier of your own, Eagles fans, with these top 3 teams. I think that gap is closing. I'm still not ready to put the Eagles over the Chiefs and the Bills, who have just shown their upside is just different than anybody else in the league with Mahomes and Josh Allen and the level of quarterbacking that they're able to reach. And that's not a slight to Jalen Hurts, who's been awesome this year. But he's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. That's not controversial to say, right? But the Eagles, perhaps the most complete team in the league, the most well-rounded roster. They're able to make so many in-game adjustments and put together different game plans to attack certain teams' weaknesses. They are a tier above any team in the NFC. And I get it, Eagles fans, you're the only undefeated team in the league. These aren't standings, they're power rankings. If you played the Chiefs, I'd be picking the Chiefs to win. If you played the Bills, I'd be picking the Bills to win. Would it be a great game? Yeah. Do I think that could be a Super Bowl matchup? Yeah. But that's how I do these power rankings. It is what it is. Let's move on to the Kansas City Chiefs at number 2. You know, the offense wasn't perfect this week. They went on against the Titans defense that had a great game plan, but just a reminder that Patrick Mahomes is that fire-breathing dragon, man, right? Like we used to say about Aaron Rodgers back in his prime, and now that Rodgers seems to be not in his prime, I think we give Patrick Mahomes definitely the fire-breathing dragon, even though over the last few years, he's been that dude that you got to put the Chiefs away if you're going to beat the Chiefs. You can't let them hang around, or this is what's going to happen to you more often than not. So clutch, and the stuff he can do with his legs, man, everything has been said about Patrick Mahomes, but it's still fun to rave about how special a football player he is. And then the Buffalo Bills, I'm still going to rank them number 1. Now, Josh Allen is banged up. He might not play this week, but that's not confirmed, so I'm not going to drop them for the week. But obviously, without Josh Allen, they're not the best team in football. But even on top of that, Josh Allen's got to play better football. Even against the Packers, he was not great. And last week, he certainly was not great. I mean, he effectively lost that game for the Bills against the Jets. Just really stupid mistakes. And we know that's something he's capable of doing, but what we've seen over the last really year of football is that he's done a much better job of maybe limiting those mistakes to 0 or 1 per game, not 2 or 3 like it was this game. So he's got to clean some stuff up. I think he will, obviously, by ranking the Bills number 1. But there are your Week 10 power rankings. I think we're starting to get a better feel for where these teams are, starting to slide these guys into the right spot. It's been a really tough year for power rankings, I think, for everybody. So let me know what you think of the ordering down below. Again, make sure you like the video and subscribe. Really appreciate it. We'll see you guys we'll see you tomorrow for the Fully Inflated Football podcast. You can follow that in the link in the description below for my second YouTube channel. And then we also have AFC Studs and Duds coming later this week. So lots of great content coming. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Peace out.